Good evening. Excuse me? Is it appropriate to bring a Bible to the podium
I think so.
at a Juneteenth celebration? I hope it is. I'm here as president of the American Family Association of Michigan. But let me say this. Proclaim liberty throughout the land and to all the inhabitants thereof.
Amen. That's right.
Leviticus 25:10. And so it is also inscribed on the Liberty Bell. And so is found at the heart of the Emancipation Proclamation in this 150th anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation. And it was the author of that proclamation, Abraham Lincoln, who said that it was God who inscribed on our hearts the love of liberty. Now, when Moses told Pharaoh, "Let my people go," and Pharaoh refused, Moses told Aaron to stretch his rod out against the Nile, and the river ran with blood. And so it was here in this country, that in order to free all of our people, the rivers and the fields ran with blood. 600,000 Americans died. And at Gettysburg, for example, more people from Michigan died than from any other state. I don't know if you know, because the inspiration for it was Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, in which he said, "This nation under God will have a new birth of freedom." But when we say the Pledge of Allegiance, and pledge our allegiance to a nation, one nation under God, I don't know if you know that it was a Republican U.S. Senator from Detroit and a Democratic U.S. Congressman from Detroit who co-sponsored the 1952 legislation that put the words "under God" in our Pledge of Allegiance. So when the ACLU and others threaten to take it out, no one should be as quick to rush to their defense as we, the sons and daughters of Michigan. Lincoln, of course, was a Republican. And according to the founding documents of the Republican Party, it was founded to oppose two things, what the founding documents called the twin pillars of barbarism. Now, I'll bet you can guess what one of the two twin pillars of barbarism was that the Republican Party was founded to oppose. What was it? Slavery. Anybody know what the other pillar was? It was a great debate in the 19th century. Polygamy. And so, in fact, it is truthful to say that the Republican Party was founded to battle slavery and to preserve the institution of marriage between one man and one woman. Now, I'm going to keep my comments brief, but I just want you to know that our faith and our freedom are still under threat today. We must still fight for them today, and one good example is next Monday. Next Monday, the United States Supreme Court will issue a ruling on the issue of marriage, one way or the other. When that issue was on the ballot here in Michigan in 2004, about 60% of Michigan voters voted to define marriage in our Constitution as only between one man and one woman, including 2/3 of black Americans. 2/3. And yet next week, the United States Supreme Court could overrule and throw out all of those votes. What should our Christian duty be in response to that kind of decision if it comes? This is a matter of faith. I mean, in the book that I read, that I brought up here to the podium, it says in the red letters,
You know what red letters are.
"For this reason shall a man leave his mother and his father." And there's your first clue. "And cleave unto his
White.
And that wasn't a multiple choice question. It's a matter of faith. If the Supreme Court says, no, in fact, there's a 50-state constitutional right to redefine marriage into some radical other notion, what is our Christian duty? I think Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. answered that question in his famous letter from a Birmingham jail. Now, I read a book one time about Winston Churchill on the speaking techniques of Winston Churchill. It said when he really wanted to emphasize a point, he would make a grand display of pausing and taking from his coat jacket his glasses and putting them on. Now, in my case, it's just so I can read what Dr. Martin Luther King said. Dr. King wrote, "One may well ask, how can you advocate breaking some laws and obeying others? The answer lies in the fact that there are two types of laws, just and unjust. I would be the first to advocate obeying just laws. One has not only a legal but a moral responsibility to obey just laws. Conversely, one has a moral responsibility to disobey unjust laws." Now, what is the difference between the two, Dr. King asked. How does one determine whether a law is just or unjust? And here's the answer he wrote. A just law is a man-made code that squares with the moral law or the law of God. Yes. An unjust law is code out of harmony with the moral law. I submit that an individual who breaks a law that conscience tells him is unjust is in reality expressing the highest respect for law. If today, he said, I lived in a communist country where certain principles dear to the Christian faith are suppressed, I would openly advocate disobeying that country's anti-religious laws, unquote, according to Dr. Martin Luther King. So I will say simply this, that if the United States Supreme Court next week overturns the vote of 31 states to define in their state constitutions, I will encourage, and the American Family Association of Michigan will encourage, and I hope you'll encourage, Governor Rick Snyder and all of the governors of all of those 31 states to do what Abraham Lincoln did regarding the Dred Scott decision, which said that a black man and a black woman are not citizens, therefore have no rights. Abraham Lincoln ignored the ruling of the United States Supreme Court. We will call on Governor Snyder to equally ignore an unjust law from the United States Supreme Court and defend the vote of the people of Michigan and our state constitution. I would say simply that with the heritage we have from the freedom fighters and the freedom riders who came before us, and with our children's freedom and our faith and our liberty at issue, God forbid, God forgive us if we fail to stand. Yes. But if we do, as Martin Luther King said we should do to fulfill our Christian duty, we will threaten those, we will overcome those who threaten our faith and freedom, and we will be proud to stand with you in that struggle for our faith. We will be blessed for doing so. And God bless and keep you strong for those fights ahead. Thank you so much, Stacy and everybody else.